Okay, guys, sorry about that. It's looking like my audio bitrate is a little off, but it's time for the. It is time for me to continue with the kineticists. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably. How should I put this? A lot of you guys and myself too have seen and known at one's video on the first level metal and wood impulses. And I've also done a video on the water impulses. But for those of you that haven't seen those videos, I am going to go ahead and go over these as well. But everything else I have not seen yet. So let's just get right into this. Oops, there goes my chat. Anyway, we're going to start with Flash Forge. An artificial metal object forms in the hands of you or a willing ally within 30 feet. You can choose a level 0 common handheld weapon or piece of adventuring gear of one bulk or less. This item is entirely made from metal, making some items impossible or impractical to use. You can make items with simple moving parts or magnetism like a compass, porlock, or a merchant scale. The item lasts for 10 minutes, but each time it's used, the user must succeed the DC 5 flat check or the item is destroyed after the action is completed. Okay. So essentially what this allows you to do is create, this is mostly for outside of combat. Make metal stuff that you might need, like a crowbar or something. You can use it to make a weapon for somebody, but that's not what this is for. This is for out of combat situations. Moving on, we have a magnetic pinions. 3 actions, overflow. Small pieces of metal fly from you, propelled with magnetism at great velocity. Make a ranged impulse attack roll against up to 3 creatures within 60 feet of you. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to your attack roll against any targets wearing metal or made of metal. All 3 attacks count toward your multiple attack penalty, but don't increase until after all the attacks. The metal pieces deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage and 1d4 piercing damage on a hit, double damage on a crit. And every 2 levels, each type of damage goes up by 1d4. This is pretty decent, but it's just damage. That's all it is. It's just a bunch of damage. Not huge. Granted, it is a lot of damage, especially at high levels. But again, it's just damage. Metal carapace. Sheets of bent and rusted metal cover you in an armored shell. Carapace is medium armor, but uses your highest armor proficiency. The carapace statistics are AC bonus +3, dex cap +2, check penalty -2, speed penalty -5 feet, strength 14, bulk 2, group plate, armor traits noisy. Any bonuses, runes, and magical abilities of your actual armor are suppressed, but any that could apply to the metal carapace are replicated onto it. when you use this impulse, you can also create a shield in a free hand, which uses the statistics of a regular steel shield. You can shield block with the shield even if you don't have the feats. The hand wielding the shield counts as a free hand for using impulses. The shield crumbles to flakes or rust if it becomes broken or leaves your grasp. The impulse lasts for 10 minutes, but you can dismiss it. If you use this impulse again, any existing one ends. The metal is frosted and fragile. If you take damage from a critical hit, the metal shatters and the impulse ends. And every 3 levels it goes up by, the hardness goes up by 1, its HP goes up by 4, and its break threshold goes up by 2. This is obviously for melee kineticists. Metal melee kineticists. It's armor and a shield. And you still count as having a free hand. It's pretty dope. Even if you're holding a weapon in the other hand. Oh, thank you, Rex Felix XIX. Yeah, it's great to see some people in the chats. That's fantastic. Let me just move this over here. Okay. All right. Okay, good. I can still read this. Fantastic. All right. Now, next we have Shard Strike. Jagged metal shards form in the air and lash out from you. You choose shards or spines, which change the area, damage type, and critical failure effects. Each creature in the area attempts a basic reflex save against your class DC. Shards deal 1d6 slashing damage in a 15-foot cone, and a creature that critically fails takes 1d6 persistent bleed damage. Spines deal 1d6 piercing damage in a 30-foot line, and a creature that critically fails is clumsy 1 until the start of your next turn. And every 2 levels, the damage increases by 1d6. Okay, this is the type of damaging feat that I like. And Rex, feel free to chime in with any of your thoughts on these. Yeah. If you're still here. Anyway, this is the kind of damaging feat I like. Because it does damage, sure, but it also has other effects. The clumsy 1 in particular is pretty good, actually. Yeah. And the persistent bleed damage is okay, but that clumsy 1, and it's a 30-foot line, it means you can hit multiple creatures with this. That is fantastic. At 4th, we've got Magnetic Fields. This is a stance, okay? Not overflow. A magnetic field surrounds you. Choose a polarity when you take this action. You can switch the polarity as a free action at the start of each of your turns while you remain in this stance. Okay. Cracked. Creature that is wearing metal armor or has the metal trait or is made of metal treat squares in your kinetic aura as difficult terrain when moving away from you. You pull unintended metal objects of light bulk or less in your kinetic aura to you. They gather in your space and move with you. Repel. A creature that is wearing metal armor, has the metal trait, or is made of metal, treats your squares in your kinetic aura as difficult terrain when moving closer to you. You push unintended metal objects of light bulk or less in your kinetic aura away. They stop moving once they're outside your aura. Okay, this, I do like this for both types of metal kineticists. Because on the one hand, if you're a melee kineticist, then you're basically forcing enemies to be, you're basically making them move toward you. Well, you're not making them move towards you, but once they're in your aura, you're making it harder for them to leave. And if you're a melee kineticist, you're making it hard, and if you're a ranged kineticist, you're making it harder for them to move closer to you. So this is good. Yeah. No matter what kind of kineticist you are, this is fantastic. I guess Rex left, but that's okay. Main thing is that at least somebody was here. Plate in treasure. This isn't overflow. This is just a regular feed. Okay. Precious metal flows from your fingers to plate an object. This has the effect of a clad in metal spell, which is in this book apparently, with a rank equal to half your level rounded up. Where you're wearing or holding an item of light bulk or greater that's plated in treasure, any metal created by one of your impulses is plated with the metal. If you use plate in treasure again, any previous one ends. I will have to see what clad in metal does. This might be good. It depends on what clad in metal does. But we'll get to that eventually here. All right. Consume power. 6th level feats. No overflow trait, and it's not a stance. Okay. It's a reaction that goes off when you would take acid, electricity, fire, or sonic damage. You absorb energy and hold it in your kinetic gate. You gain resistance equal to your level to the triggering damage. Choose one eligible type of resistance. If this reaction prevents any damage, you gain a status bonus equal to half your level to the damage roll of your next metal impulse you use before the end of your next turn. Huh. Interesting. This is actually pretty broken, I won't lie. It does only affect you, but it's like getting up to a +10 to damage is really good. But again, it's just damage, and getting resistance. Fire damage is pretty common, actually. This is decent. Oh, okay. So Rex is still here. He's just having net issues. That's fine. Okay. Yep. All right. So now we move on to Scrap Barricade. This is overflow. Okay, this should be interesting. Ragged pieces of metal weld together into ramshackle structure. Barricade is up to 30 feet long, 15 feet high, and 1/2 inch thick. It must form in a straight line in an unbroken open space that doesn't pass through any creatures or objects, or the impulse fails. Each 10 foot by 10 foot section of the wall has AC 10 hardness 10, and 20 hit points. And it's immune to critical hits and precision damage. If any section is destroyed, the entire wall collapses. Each creature adjacent to the wall takes 2d8 slashing damage with a basic reflex save against what, your class DC? Yeah, that's what I thought. Your class DC. The wall lasts until the end of your next turn, but you can sustain it for up to 1 minute. Okay. And the maximum length of the wall increases by 10 feet. The HP of each section increases by 10. And the damage, when it's destroyed, increases by 1d8. And it's level +2. Okay. This is basically a metal wall, is what it is. And you do have to be careful about how you use this, because everyone adjacent to the wall takes the damage. So you don't want to, so you guys don't, so nobody on your side wants to be right next to the wall. But in order to get past the wall, the enemy has to destroy it. And it's going to be hard to do that with ranged attacks, especially since it's immune to crits and precision damage. And if any section is destroyed, the entire wall goes. Which means any enemies that are right next to the wall are going to take the damage, as well as your own. So you do have to be careful with this. But it is pretty good that you can set up a metal wall. And unfortunately, it is overflow. So you're going to have to redo your thing. But that's fine. Okay, at 8th level, we've got... Oh, there are 19 creatures with the metal traits. Yeah, that's going to limit metal somewhat. Yeah, you're probably right there. Conductive sphere. I do think there are plenty of metal impulses that work even against creatures that don't have the metal traits. But you're right. If there's only 19 creatures with the metal trait, then yeah, it's gonna limit metal. Anyway, conductive sphere. A floating metal ball forms into space within 30 feet, flashing with electricity. Can't be targeted or damaged. Any of your allies adjacent to it gain resistance to electricity equal to your level, and add the shock rune to all of your strikes. To all of their strikes with metal objects. Yeah, knights are in trouble. When you conjure the sphere, and the first time you sustain the impulse on subsequent rounds, you can either have it fly up to 20 feet or deal 1d12 electricity damage to an adjacent creature with a basic reflex save. Okay. The damage is nice, but what I really like about this is the fact that anyone that's adjacent to the metal ball is going to get resistant to electricity and the shock rune. So no matter what, this is, unless you're going up against something that has, electricity resistance or uses electricity, this is always going to be good. Yeah, this is just extra damage for everyone that's adjacent to this metal sphere. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and And you can move it too. So, you know. Wretch Rust. Okay, this is an overflow. You exhale tendrils from the flakes of rusted metal. All creatures in a 30-foot cone take 4d10 slashing damage with a basic fortitude against class DC. A metal creature that fails its save also takes 2d4 persistent slashing damage. And heighten +2. The cloud's slashing damage increases by 1d10 and persistent damage increases by 1d4. Okay, so this again is just damage, but you got to be extremely careful with this one because it's all creatures in a 30-foot cone. That includes your allies. And that's, yeah, you got to be careful about when you use this. And it's overflow. So, you know, it's not great for me. Moving on. Next, we've got Rain of Razors. This is another overflow. Razor sharp slivers of metal fall from the sky. Each creature in a 20-foot burst within 60 feet takes 96 slashing damage with a basic reflex against class DC. The razors embed in all surfaces in the area, making them hazardous terrain for 1 minute. The creature that moves through hazardous terrain takes 3 slashing damage for each square of the area it moves into. The initial damage increases by 1d6 and the hazardous terrain damage increases by 1 for every 2 levels. Okay. This is decent. It does allow them to... It does good damage. And it makes it hazardous terrain, which might mean that enemies might try to move around it, which would make them waste actions. Which is great. Hazardous terrain is very similar to difficult terrain and pretty much does the same thing, except it does damage too. Moving on, we've got Shatter Shields. 4 plates of pitted metal float around you to intercept attacks. You and allies in your kinetic aura gain a +1 circumstance bonus to AC. When a creature with this bonus would take damage from a physical attack, the plates reduce the damage by its hardness of 5. Okay. Oh, okay. I see now. If the damage exceeds the hardness, that plate is destroyed. You can replenish all destroyed plates as a single action that has the concentrate trait. Okay. So basically, this is a shield for everybody. Yeah, and the hardness increases by 1. Yeah, this is a... Oh my god, with that feat that lets you have a 30-foot... Oh my god. This is a shield for everyone in your kinetic aura. Insane. This right here is ridiculously broken, especially with that feat that makes your kinetic aura a 30-foot emanation. All right. Alloy, Flesh, and Steel. This is 14th. Okay, no overflow traits. Elemental energy replaces every cell of your body with raw metal. You gain the benefits of the Ferrous Form spell, except you can't cast Needle Darts. And that's going to be on the spell section. I have no idea what Ferrous Form does, but I'm assuming I'll be able to figure it out on Archives of Nethys later. I'm not going all the way to page 142 to cover these spells. You can sustain the impulse for up to 1 minute, and when you do, you can raise a metal shield if you're wielding one. So this works great with the first level feat that gives you armor and a shield. Your metal elemental blast deal an additional die of damage. If you suspend any conditions with alloy flesh and steel, when it ends, you're temporarily immune to alloy flesh and steel for 1 hour. Okay, so it sounds like the spell gets rid of certain conditions, and the resistance is 15 at level 16. Okay. Yeah, at some point I'm going to have to look up what Ferrous Form does. But, you know, and you can bring it up to 1 minute. Okay, decent. Let's see here. Beasts of Slumbering Steel. No overflow. You conjure metal elemental mounts made of interlocking metal pieces. Target up to 5 medium or smaller willing creatures within 30 feet. Large mounts appear underneath them, and the targets can immediately mount the creatures. Each mount can take 4 different forms. One form only has only a land speed of 80 feet, while the other forms each have a land speed of 30 feet with a climb, fly, or swim speed of 60 feet. Each rider chooses the initial form and can change the form as a single action, which has the concentrate trait. The mounts have an AC 40, Fortitude plus 30, Reflex plus 30, Will plus 25, and 180 hit points. They're mindless and immune to bleed, healing, paralyze, poison, and sleep. They can't attack if they remain for 1 minute or until you use this impulse again. You can use this impulse as a 1 minute exploration activity to make the duration 1 hour, but this halves the mount's defenses and HP. This is fantastic. This is essentially giving everyone mounts. And you can have them climb, fly, or swim. And each rider can choose the initial form and change the form. And most of the time, the defenses and hit points aren't even going to matter since they can't attack. So, I mean, it's great. This is great. And you can use this impulse as 1 minute exploration activity to make it an hour. Which means, and while this does half the mount's defenses and HP, doesn't matter. During exploration, that hardly matters. Yeah, it's most of the time, since they can't attack, about the only way that's going to matter is if you're like flying and if you're flying and you run into an encounter while flying and the enemies decide to attack your mounts rather than you, which, you know, that only happens if they're smart, which, you know, a lot of flying creatures aren't. So, you know. Spell of 1 million needles. Okay, this is overflow, 3 actions. The landscape fills with monumental filaments of metal. The needles land in a cube 30 feet on one side within 500 feet. So it's a 30-foot cube. Okay. Which is a rather large area. Each creature in the area takes 13d6 piercing damage with a basic reflex against your class DC. Okay. Each creature that fails its save is impaled, becoming immobilized until it escapes, and the DC is your class DC. Which, remember, kineticists get legendary in class DC. A creature that critically failed is also off guard and as long as it's impaled. Okay, yeah. The hell remains until the end of your next turn, but you can sustain it for up to 1 minute. Using this impulse again ends any previous one. The first time you sustain it each round, lightning crisscrosses the needles. Each creature in the area takes 3d12 electricity damage with a basic reflex save against your class DC. Squares in the area are hazardous terrain. A creature takes 6 piercing damage for every square in the area it moves through. Oh my god, so this is... I love this one. I love this one. This is fantastic. Because it's a 30-foot cube within 500 feet. Doesn't say it has to be on the ground. Which means you can use this on flying creatures too. And it keeps them in one place because if they... It gives them indecision because if they stay in the area, they're taking a bunch of damage, but if they try to move out of the area, then they're going to take damage for every square. Oh, and at 20th, the initial damage is 17d6, and the hazardous terrain damage is 7. Yeah. This gives them indecision, too. Yeah. What's the GM going to do? If they stay in the area, they take damage, but if they try to move through, they take damage. So, if they try to move out of it, they take damage. So, I mean, granted, it's less damage. Yeah. But this is a 30-foot cube. That's an insane area. Most people are probably going to choose to move through it because it is less damage. But still, you know. And keep in mind, you can keep them in the area too, because if they fail their save, they're immobilized until they escape. I can definitely see why this is level 18 and overflow. Yeah. Alright, let's look at... Okay, do I really need to go? Yeah, I should go over the water impulses, even though I did do a video on these already. Okay. Let's just really quickly go over these, because I did do a video on this already. Deflecting Wave, essentially you gain resistance from a acid, bludgeoning, fire, or slashing damage from an enemy's attack spell or other hostile effect. And yeah, that's basically it. Ocean's Palm is healing and resistance to fire. Tidal Hands is essentially a water version of, well, it's called the water version of Breathe Fire, except that you can make two 15 cones or one 30-foot cone. Winter's Clutch is basically cold damage with basic reflex, and the ground is difficult terrain. Return to Sea is target a willing creature within 30 feet. For 10 minutes, it gains the effects of a feat to fin spell, can breathe water, blah, blah, blah. Winter Slates is basically makes the stuff makes the kinetic aura, your kinetic aura, uneven ground, and they're off ground, and they're off guard, which is the new name for flat-footed. Driving Rain is just damage, basically. Oh, yeah, definitely. Versatility is very much appreciated. Wait, do you mean the versatility in the do you mean the versatility in the actual impulses, or do you mean my versatility in going over these? I'll let you get back to me on that. Each creature in a 15-foot cone, yeah. This is essentially just damage and concealment. Yeah. Point in the Blood is another healing thing. Call the Hurricane. It's essentially just damage, and you can push them. Impenetrable Fog is difficult terrain and fog. Glacial Prison was always pretty good. It's basically just you can make them slowed, frozen, solid. Yeah. Sea-Glass Guardians is a stance. Oh yeah. The impulses do tend to be more versatile than comparable spells. You're right. They do. Yeah, that's. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Sea-Glass Guardians is a stance that lets you heal people and +1 to status bonus and saving throws. Barrier of Boreal Frost is essentially a wall of ice spell. It's better. Ride the Tsunami is really good. It's basically allows you to move in a 60-foot. Basically allows you to move anyone in a 60-foot cone or 120-foot line, and they take damage. And it can pull enemies toward you. Yeah. Usurp the Lunar Rains is essentially just a 50 by 50 foot wide area, 50 by 50 cube, basically, within 500 feet. And you get to choose certain effects like creating water, controlling water, modulating water, and slowing people down. Yeah, that's basically it. Okay, now let's move on to wood. Now, wood I'm very interested in because this is one that I think could be really, really good. So first we've got fresh produce. Choose a creature in your kinetic aura. Produce grows in your open hand or at their feet if they have no open hands. Okay. Produce has light bulk. A creature that can eat it with an interact action to to regain 1d4 plus 1 hit points. Healing vitality effects. The creature feels full for 10 minutes, during which it has resistance to void damage, which is the new thing for negative damage, and can't eat another piece of produce. Produce not consumed by the end of your turn by the start of your next turn withers away. What do you mean by UTLR? I'm not following there, but and level +2. I'll wait for you to get back to me on that. The healing increases by 1d4 plus 5, and the resistance increases by 2. So this does 100% level up with you, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, and it's one action. I mean, granted, it's one action for you, and then they have to spend an action to eat it, but it's still good healing. Not great healing, but good healing. Oh, yeah. You serve the little reins. Oh, yeah. 100% I see that being errated. It definitely, yeah, it definitely can change. Uh, it definitely can change the world. 100%. I definitely see that being errated. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. Okay. Hail of Splinters. Creatures in a 30-foot cone take 1d4 piercing damage and 1d4 persistent bleed damage with a basic reflex save against your class DC. And each type of damage increases by 1d4 for every 2 levels. Yeah, this is just damage. That's all it is. So, not great for me, anyway. It's good damage, but it's just damage at the end of the day. Hardwood armor. This is essentially the This is essentially the wooden version of that metal armor feat. I mean, granted, it is wooden, so it's going to be less effective, but it is still a good. It is still 100% a good feat. Yep. Timber Sentinel. Oh, this is the Protector Tree one. I cannot tell you how many times Protector Tree has helped immensely, especially when you have a champion in the party. And I can tell you that and keep in mind and Protector Tree is normally a first level spell, which means and this isn't even overflow. You can just keep doing this without even using. This is broken. This is completely and totally broken. This is basically 30 temporary hit points. 30 temporary hit points every single round. You can't touch this. Yeah. Yeah, They might have to errate that. They might have to give it the overflow trait just because, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they might have to give it the overflow trait just because this is completely broke. Okay. Ravel of Thorns. Thorny vines grow in a geometric patterns on surfaces in your kinetic aura. A creature that starts its turn in the thorns takes how much damage? Oh, a -10 foot penalty to their speed until it leaves the area. The thorns are hazardous terrain. A creature that takes 2 piercing damage each time it moves into one of these squares. Any square the thorns grow on its water or soil, double the hazardous terrain for all thorns. If you move, the thorns disappear. New thorns grow at the end of your turn. And it's in your kinetic aura, right? Yes, it is in your kinetic aura. So this is so basically, it's hard for them to leave. Is this a stance? Better be. 100% it is a stance. Which means that this occurs until you leave the stance. Which is pretty good, yeah. So it's a -10 foot penalty to speed. Hazardous terrain. And it's double damage if the square, if you're on water or soil. And it is difficult terrain that you can move, but not until the end of your turn. Insane. This is like the ultimate difficult terrain, essentially. Imagine this on a freaking Wood Kineticist champion. Wood Kineticist with the freaking champion archetype. That sounds freaking amazing. Because of this feat right here. Moving on, we've got Tumbling Lumber. A slew of logs eject from the plane of wood and slam into your enemies. They roll in a 10-foot wide, 30-foot long line. Non-magical difficult terrain. In any ground the logs roll over is smashed flat. Greater difficult terrain remains. Each creature in the area takes 2d8 bludgeoning damage and might be moved by the logs, depending on its reflex save against your class DC. On a critical success, of course, nothing happens. On a success, they take half damage. On a failure, they take full damage and are pushed out of the line or in the most direct path possible. And on a critical failure, they take double damage and are knocked prone. And every 3 levels, the damage increases by 1d8. And it starts with 2d8. Okay. Oh, okay. It only creates greater difficult terrain if the ground was already difficult terrain. And that was non-magical. But this is still a fantastic feat. Because you can push them out of the way, making them move again. And if they crit fail, then they're not only are they taking double damage, but they're knocked prone. Which prone is an amazing condition to put on an enemy, especially if you got a fighter in the party. This is and this one isn't even overflow either. Insane. I love this one. Yeah. Dash of herbs. Small cloud of medicinal herbs heal a creature. Type of herbs depend on which malady you decide to treat. Confused, disease, poison, sickened, or injuries. Okay, one living creature within 30 feet who regains 2d8 plus 4 hit points and can have a new save against one malady of the chosen kind. If you choose injuries, you instead increase the healing dice to d10s. The creature becomes temporarily immune to dash of herbs for 10 minutes. Alternatively, you can add the herbs to a dish of food being prepared for up to 6 people. Creatures who partake in the meal gain the benefits. The herbs' healing effects wear off if not eaten within an hour, though their flavor remains. And every 2 levels, this goes up by 1. This is essentially the medicine skill on steroids. Yeah. You can do this during combat because it is 2 actions. It is 2 actions, but yeah, you can do this during combat. 100%. And it's a small cloud, which means they don't have to do anything to be affected by it. And you can use it outside of combat too. Yeah, this is another great one for wood. I can definitely see wood kineticist with champion dedication. Already. Wood of Palisade. For 3 actions. This one is overflow. Okay. Planks of wood embellished with carvings spring forth to form a wall. Palisade is up to 30 feet long, 20 feet high, and 1 inch thick. It must form a straight line in unbroken open space that doesn't pass through any creatures or objects, or the impulse fails. When you create the wall, you can choose to create ledges on one side of the wall, 4 feet from the top, with ladders reaching them from the bottom of the wall. Each 10-foot by 10-foot section of the wall has AC 10. Okay, this is like the metal one, except it's wood. Yeah, and it has features that the metal one doesn't. Okay. Yep. All right. Drifting pollen. This is a stance. Okay. A haze of pollen floats around you. Creature in your kinetic aura when you enter the stance or who later enters the area or ends its turn in the area must succeed. Attempts a fortitude save against your class DC. On a failure, it's sickened 1, or sickened 2 on a crit fail, and dazzled until it's no longer sickened. A creature who attempts this save no more than once per round and doesn't attempt a new save if it's already affected. Okay, yeah. Again, this would be amazing for champions. You come near me, oh, make a fortitude save against my class DC. Or be sickened. Sickened is one of the best conditions in the entire game. This is only level 8. And keep in mind, kineticists get legendary in their class DC. Yeah. This is, wow. Yeah. Wood kineticist champion. If it keeps going like this, I am definitely building that as a teamwork build for this channel. 100%. Blood drinking vines. Okay. Sanguinolent roots. I have no idea how to pronounce it. Blood drinking vines grow from the ground at a 15-foot birth within 120 feet. Each living enemy in the area has its blood drained, taking 3d6 piercing damage with a basic fortitude save against your class DC. Each time the vines drink blood, living creatures in the area who aren't your enemies regain hit points equal to half the damage a single creature took. Calculate this using the highest damage to a single creature took. This is a healing vitality effect. Your enemies with void healing in the area take vitality damage in the same amount as the healing. The vines last until the end of your next turn, and you can sustain the impulse. The first time you sustain the impulse on subsequent turns, you can repeat the effect. So this is damage to enemies, healing your allies, and if they have void healing, which is negative healing, they take even more damage. And this increases wood kinetic. You know, I keep saying this, but this is another reason to be a wood kineticist champion. Last time I'm going to say it, I promise. Hedge Mage. You sculpt a manicured maze of hedges. You create a wall of shrubs. 99. Okay. In a square, 30 feet on a side, with a 15-foot high walls. You can place up to 4 more walls inside, each 10 feet wide and 15 foot high. The hedge lasts until the end of your next turn, but you can sustain it for up to 1 minute. You can spend 10 minutes using this impulse as an exploration activity to instead create a cozy cabin with hedges for walls. This lasts for 12 hours, but ends if you use the impulse again. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. This is decent. This is not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. It is overflow too. So, oh, whoops. I think I okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's look at Witchwood Seed. You touch a creature to implant a malignant seed in its body. The creature takes 5d10 piercing damage and other effects depending on its fortitude save against your class DC. Creature is then temporarily immune for 24 hours. Creatures with the fungus, plant, or wood trait are immune. Okay. You can't use this on like a treant. How often are you going to run into that? Or even like a Leshy. Which makes a lot of sense. Critical success, nothing happens. Success, the creature takes half damage and a minus 10-foot success penalty to all its speed until the end of its next turn. On a failure, they take full damage, clumsy 2, and immobilized until the end of its next turn. Critical failure, the target takes double damage and is clumsy 2 and immobilized. It attempts a new saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on a success. Okay, so it sounds like if they fail, then these are only until the end of its next turn, which is fine. If they critically fail, then it's until they save, which is good. And the damage increases by 1d10 every 4 levels. And this is 12, right? So 16 and 20th. This can do up to 7d10 damage. And these other effects. This is another one that's pretty good. Because it does damage and other stuff. Fortress Endurance. As the bark appear on the skin of you and your... Oh, is this like the metal one? It is, but they gain resistance to 5 to bludgeoning and piercing damage. And affected allies and yourself roll flat checks to recover from persistent damage twice and take the higher result. This is a fortune effect. And the resistance increases like 2. The metal one's better. The metal one's way better. Yeah. Because you get AC from that one. But this, in certain situations, could be good. Because, yeah, it doesn't help you against slashing damage, but they're not using slashing damage. This could be good. But the metal one is better. The metal one is 100% better. Okay. Rouse the Forest Fury. This is overflow. Okay. Terrifying trees attack your enemies. 3 large trees appear in an unoccupied space within 500 feet. At least 15 feet from one another. Each tree has AC 40, Fortitude plus 33, Reflex plus 24, Will plus 30, and 200 HP. These trees can flank, but are unable to move. When the trees appear, each make a strike. They share a multiple attack penalty. Each tree's melee strike is a branch that has reach 10, and on a hit, target is grabbed by a tree. The ranged strike is a hurled fruit, gourd, or seed, or stone with a range increment of 6 feet. Each strike has a plus 30 attack modifier and deals 40, 10 plus 9 bludgeoning damage. Trees last until the end of your next turn, and you can sustain the impulse. Each time you sustain the impulse, you have 1 tree make a strike. Okay. Okay. And the attack modifier is 32, and the strike damage is 5d10 plus 9 at level 20. Okay. So this is basically you create a bunch of trees, and they can attack and flank. That's pretty good. This is good for the same reason summons are good in Pathfinder 3. It gives enemies something else to worry about besides the party. You're talking about the feat that I'm talking about right now? If so, then yeah. Yeah, 100% Wizard of Oz vibes. Yeah. I mean, you do have to sustain the impulse when if you want them to attack more than each tree gets to make a strike on the first hit. On the first round, they all get to attack. On the second time, after that, only one of them gets to attack when you sustain the impulse. But still, it does give them something else to worry about. Yeah. Turn the Wheel of Seasons. This is another overflow. Okay. The seasons shift rapidly. This impulse can affect a cube 100 feet in each dimension within 1,000 feet. That's insane. That's an insane area. Choose the starting season. The impulse lasts for 4 rounds, proceeding to the next season at the start of each of your turns. You can't use this impulse again until the previous one ends. Okay. So it really doesn't matter that this is overflow, except that you do have to redo your element thing to use other impulse. But spring, each ally in the cube gains 20 temporary hit points that last until the start of your next turn. Any dying ally rolls a recovery check, but can't get worse than a success. Okay, that's pretty broken. Each enemy in the area is exposed to sunlight and must attempt a reflex save against your class DC. It's unaffected on a critical success, dazed until the start of your next turn on a success, or blinded until the start of your next turn on a failure. Okay. Wait, does that mean if they're particularly vulnerable to sunlight, they take that? I'm not sure. Autumn. Leaves and rain make everything in the area concealed until the start of your next turn, and a cold wind makes each enemy in the area slowed 1 until the start of your next turn, unless it succeeds at a fortitude save against your class DC. Okay. So everything in the area is concealed and they're slowed. That's wow. In winter, each enemy in the aura takes 5d6 cold damage with a basic reflex save against your class DC. Creature that fails its save also takes 2d6 persistent cold damage. Now, can you start any of these? Yeah, you can start with any of these. Which means you can start with whichever one you need at the moment, and then you do have to go through all of these before it ends and you can do it again. But a lot of these only affect allies, or they only affect enemies. The only thing that affects both is the first part of autumn. Because that makes everything concealed in there. But your enemies are the only ones slowed. So this right here is amazing. You do have to watch out for the autumn one though, because it does make everything concealed. But otherwise, this is amazing. I can see why this is overflow and why this is level 18. Definitely. Moving on. Now we get to the composite impulses. This is what I've been looking forward to. Okay, so this is water and wood. Okay. Ambush bladderworts. This is if you have water and wood. You plant a seed of giant bladderwort in an unoccupied square of ground or water within 30 feet. It lasts for 10 minutes. Using this impulse again ends any previous one. If a creature enters its square, the seed erupts into a voluminous, translucent plant that seals tight around the triggering creature and fills with water. Unless the creature succeeds at a reflex save against your class DC, it's immobilized within the bladderwort and must hold its breath or begin drowning. The escape DC is also your class DC. The plant has 10 hit points, has AC 10 and 50 hit points. If a creature dies inside it, the plant shrinks down, converting itself and the remains into a watery fruit. A creature can eat this consumable to regain 1d8 plus 4 hit points, after which that creature is temporarily immune for 10 minutes. This fruit rots after 1 hour. And the bladderwort's HP increases by 25, and the fruit's healing increases by 1d8. 4. That's every 4 levels. So we're looking at 8, 12, 16, and 20th. Okay. So this is a good way to set up a trap. Yeah, this is a fantastic way to set up a trap. Oh, yeah. If you have time to set this up before a fight happens, this is amazing. And if you don't want a creature to enter a certain square, this is an excellent way to do it. It doesn't have to be ground or water, but still. This is pretty good. Yeah, I like this a lot. Lava Leap. This is Earth and Fire. Okay. I did hear about this in the stream. You wreath yourself in molten stone and hurtle toward your enemy. Leap up to your speed. At the end of your leap, with a wave of lava crashes onto all creatures in a 10-foot emanation. Each creature in the area takes 1d6 bludgeoning damage and 2d6 fire damage with a basic reflex against your class DC. The cooling remains of the lava form a temporary protective shell around you, granting you a +2 circumstance bonus to AC until the start of your next turn. Okay. Again, this just allows you to, this is damage, and it allows you to jump into it allows you to get right in there as a leap and do damage, and it helps you with your defense. Pretty good, especially for a defensive character. Living Bonfire. Okay, this is fire and wood. Roots and branches of living wood writhe in elemental fire at your command, forming a bonfire fearsome enough to scare off predators in the night. You conjure a bonfire in an unoccupied 10-foot square space within 30 feet. The bonfire burns for 10 hours, providing all the benefits of a normal campfire. If you use this impulse again, any previous one ends. If you make a wood-ranged elemental blast, you can have it come from the bonfire instead of you, flinging burning logs. The blast deals an additional 1d6 fire damage. Each time you do this, the size of the bonfire is reduced by 1 5-foot square. If all squares are removed, the impulse ends. The fire damage increases by 1d6 every 5 levels. That's, okay, so that's 9th, 14th, and 19th. Okay, I can see why yeah. Okay. So this is only really good if you get if people come to attack you during the night when you're like sleeping and stuff. Otherwise, you're only really going to be able to use this for one encounter, because it does stay in one place. It is cool that you can make your wood ranged elemental blast come from the fire instead of you, but that's really about it. Not great. Rain of Rust, metal and water. Okay. You conjure a red rain cloud in a 10-foot burst within 60 feet, which pours rust-colored rain directly below it. Any creature in the rain with the metal trait is made of metal or is wearing metal armor is covered in a corrosive buildup. Any such creature is clumsy 1 as long as it remains in the area. If such a creature is in the rain at the start of its turn, it takes 3d6 damage with a basic fortitude save against your class DC. Plus 1d6 persistent damage if it fails. Damage from this impulse ignores hardness. Okay, this is just damage, but only to metal creatures, or somebody wearing metal. Not great. Not great. Whirling Grindstone. Okay, this is another one they mentioned in the stream way back when. A whirling grindstone made of flint appears in an unoccupied square within 30 feet. The grindstone shreds flesh and shoots sparks. Attempt an impulse attack roll against the AC of a creature adjacent to the grindstone. On a hit, the creature takes 2d6 slashing damage and 1d6 fire damage, double damage on the crit. The grindstone lasts until the end of your next turn, but you can sustain it for up to 1 minute. On subsequent turns, the first time you sustain the impulse that turn, you can roll the grindstone up to 20 feet and repeat the attack. A creature within the reach of the grindstone can interact with it to sharpen a metal weapon. This grants a +2 circumstance bonus to the next damage roll made with that weapon within 1 minute. Huh. That part is pretty cool. That part is 100% pretty cool. Yep. And and you can move this around too. You do have to be careful about, most enemies aren't even going to interact with this. Only your allies that are going to know that, oh, in most cases, it's only going to be your allies that know that, oh, if you interact with it, then you get a +2 on your damage roll. And this is also level +5. And you know, you can move it through, and you can, you know, do damage to creatures that to enemies. Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't know. That's a good question. I really don't know. That's an interesting question. I'm not sure. And I think the iconic is definitely a flame kineticist. Sure. Yeah. But no, I don't know. As for when I do teamwork builds, and by the way, hi Coslos. Hi Coslos. Yeah, I really have no idea. But I might have to redo my my Google sheet specifically for the kineticist because the kineticist gets like 3 feats at level 1. And that's just, and they get other impulse feats as they level up. So yeah, I might have to redo that. But as for, is there a kineticist iconic character sheet somewhere? I don't know. I have no clue. But anyway, let's move on. Next we have Ash Strider, Air and Fire. Okay. You discorporate into a cloud of whirling ash and stride. If you have a fly speed, you can fly instead. This movement doesn't trigger reactions, and you can move through occupied spaces and tiny cracks. And you ignore any difficult terrain and greater difficult terrain that wouldn't impede smoke. First creature you pass through during this movement takes 3d6 fire damage with a basic reflex save against your class DC. Ash lingers around you after your movement is complete, granting you concealment until the start of your next turn. And every 2 levels, the damage increases by 1d6. Okay. You've been trying to mix match her abilities from Pathfinder 1e sheet, but yeah, a lot of feats to make sure it's similar enough. Yeah. 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 You're right. Yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to make another Google sheet just for the kineticist, I think. When I do teamwork builds on the kineticist. Because yeah, they do get a ton of feats. But anyway. Yeah, I'm sure you can find it somewhere. I just don't know where it would be. Sorry about that. All right. Desert wind. A vortex of sand and dust surrounds you. Each creature inside your kinetic aura, including you, is concealed from any creature outside your kinetic aura. This is air and earth. Okay. And creatures outside the area are concealed from creatures inside the area other than you. Your air impulses carry sands that cut at great speed. When you use a damaging air impulse that affects at least one creature in your kinetic aura, that impulse deals one additional one additional slashing damage, or 2 if the impulse has a single target. The extra damage increases by 1 or 2 if the impulse has a single target for every 2 levels past 6th. Okay. Interesting. Elemental artillery. This is metal and wood. Okay. Spinning wood and metal together, you create a rugged wooden ballista. Ballista is medium and appears in an unoccupied space within 30 feet. It immediately shoots a bolt with a jagged tip of elemental metal. Make an impulse attack roll against the AC of a target within 120 feet. Target takes 3d12 piercing damage on a hit, or double damage on a crit. The ballista can be shot again, but it must first be reloaded with 2 interact actions. The ballista again lasts until the end of your next turn, and you can sustain the impulse. Each time you sustain it, you can roll the ballista up to 20 feet, shoot it if it's loaded, or contribute 1 action to reloading it. I'm not entirely sure how ballistas actually work, but it sounds like a really good way to get... Yeah, this does sound like a good way to get ranged attacks into characters that don't normally have them. Oh, it has to be reloaded with 2 interact actions. But every time you sustain it, you can contribute 1 action to reloading it if you want, or you can shoot it or move it. And every 3 levels, it increases by 1d12. Okay, yeah. This is only really good, though, if you know an encounter is coming up and you want to do damage before it comes up on you. Large crossbow? Yeah, that's true. That's true. It would be a large. Yeah, essentially, it is a large crossbow. You're right. Yeah, yeah. Jagged berms. This is earth and wood. Okay. You conjure up to 6 cube-shaped mounds of packed earth. Oh, this is similar to the metal one, isn't it? Oh, no, no, no. This is a mound, not a mount. Sorry. Um, each appears in an unoccupied square within 120 feet, fills a square, and provides cover. A mound has AC 10, hardness 10, and 20 hit points, and it's immune to critical hits and precision damage. If destroyed, a mound becomes difficult terrain. A mound lasts for an unlimited duration, and if you use the impulse again, any previous one ends. Carbon wood stakes protrude from each mound in adjacent squares. It can project from any of its sides. You choose which side for each mound. For each square of wooden stakes a creature enters, that creature takes 2d6 persistent damage. Destroying a mound also destroys its stakes. This is fantastic. That, like, hunker down. Yeah. I mean, this is fantastic for a rogue. It gives them cover, and if they attack the mound, then they're wasting their actions attacking the mound. And even if they destroy it, then it's difficult terrain. So they can't even get to. So they're still going to have a hard time getting past. They're still going to have a hard time getting past those areas to people taking cover behind them. And if they try to move past the mounds, then they take damage. And every 2 levels, the HP of the section of the wall increases by 10, and piercing damage increases by 1d6 every 2 levels. Okay. Okay, yeah. All right. I can definitely see including some other elements in the. I can definitely see some other elements being included in that wood kineticist champion now, like the earth. Lightning rod. 3 actions, air and metal. I haven't seen any of overflows in the I haven't seen any overflows in these composites yet. It's fantastic. You smash a metal rod into your foe and call lightning to it. Attempt a 1-action melee elemental blast using the metal element. On a hit, the target is skewered with a metal rod, which gives it a -1 circumstance penalty to AC and saves against electricity. Penalty is -2 if the creature has the metal trait, is made of metal, or is wearing metal armor. A hit creature immediately takes 1d12 electricity damage with a basic reflex save against your class DC. The creature can interact to attempt a DC 10 athletics check to pull the lightning rod free. And every 6 levels, that's 12 and 18, electricity damage increases by 1d12. That's a little much, I think. I think every 6 levels, that I feel like this doesn't scale well. Yeah. I mean, 1d12 is fantastic for a first level, but no wait, it's level 6. That's 6, 12, 18. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this doesn't scale well at all. Molten wire. This is fire and metal. Okay. Spinning molten iron through a vortex of fire. Sorry, guys, gotta stay hydrated. Make an impulse attack roll against a creature within 15 feet. On a success, the target takes 2d6 slashing damage, is wrapped in molten wire for 1 minute. Okay. Is clumsy 1 and takes 2d4 fire damage at the start of each of its turns with a basic reflex save. With the wire's escape DC is your class DC. The wire has AC 10 and 75 hit points. Impulse ends if the creature escapes or the wire is destroyed. Slashing damage increases by 1d6. The fire damage increases by 1d4, and the wire's hit points increase by 25. That's every 4 levels. So that's 10, 14, 18. Okay, this stacks pretty. This scales pretty. Yeah. Before I get to Rising Hurricane, I am going to take a little break here, guys. So I will see you in a few minutes. Okay, guys, I'm back. So, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Rising Hurricane. This is air and water. Okay. I thought about doing a storm kineticist, but we'll see if this is any good. A hurricane lifts your enemies into the air before bringing them crashing down in a bloody rain. Okay. Your hurricane appears in a cylinder that's 40 feet tall and has a 30-foot diameter and is within 120 feet. All creatures in the area take 2d6 bludgeoning damage with a basic fortitude save against class DC. Lift any creature that fails its save, any height you choose within the area, moving it up to 5 feet in any direction, then drop it. It takes falling damage normally unless it has a fly speed. Make sure I understand this correctly. But it's a 40-foot tall cylinder. It has a 30-foot diameter. So, okay, it's not that big, but you can move it 5 feet in any direction. You can have it up to 40 feet in the air and move it up to 5 feet in any direction and then drop it. And they take falling damage normally unless they have a and since they're falling, they're gonna land prone. This is ridiculous. This is level 6. And every 3 levels you can do increase the height of your tornado 5 feet. And the rain damage increases by 1d6. I am definitely building a Storm Kinesis at some point just for this feat. I mean, they're taking a huge amount of fall damage because it's 40 feet. So they take half that. That's 20. That's at level 6. That's 20 feet. That's 20 points of fall damage. And they land prone. And they take 2d6 bludgeoning damage with a basic save. They don't get a basic save against the fall damage. And at 9th, let's see, at 9th, 12th, 15th, and 18th, this increases by 5 feet. It scales really well, too. Yeah. Definitely building a Storm Kinesis just for this feat. You form water and earth into a mudslide that smashes. Okay, roiling mudslide is earth and water. Okay. That's so you form water and earth into a mudslide that smashes your opponents and coats them into mud. Each creature in the area. Hi, Vandal. How are you? Nice to see somebody from Brazil here. Each creature in the area takes 2d8 bludgeoning damage with a basic fortitude save against your class DC. Creature that fails is also pushed 5 feet or 10 feet on a critical failure and is coated in mud. Sorry, guys. Till the end of its next turn. While coated in mud, the creature falls prone, and at the end of its movement, anytime it ends a move action, other than a crawl or step. Creature can attempt an acrobatics check or reflex DC or reflex save against your class DC, avoiding the fall if it succeeds. Again, this is amazing. So it does damage, pushes them back, and if they fail, then every time they try to do more than take a step or crawl, they're prone. Which means they have to spend an action getting back up. And the damage increases by 1d8. The damage isn't even important here. It's the fact that you push them back, and every time they end their movement, they fall down. Unless they do an acrobatics or reflex save. Against enemies that have low dex, this is downright amazing. Alright. Steam Knight. This is fire and water. Okay, and this is a stance. You shape your kinetic aura into a swirling armor of steam that scalds your enemies and propels you on superheated jet steams. The creature can take damage from Steam Knight only once per round. Your steam armor has the following effects. Plus 10-foot status bonus to your speed. When you leap, you can jump up to your speed. You don't immediately fall at the end of your jump, provided you leap again with your next action. If you leap over a creature and come within 10 feet, that creature takes 2d6 fire damage with a basic reflex against class DC. At the end of each of your turns, you can emit steam as a free action. It deals 2d6 fire damage to each creature in your kinetic aura with a basic reflex save against class DC. Creature that fails is also pushed 5 feet. I assume in any direction. The fire damage from a jump or blast of steam increases by 1d6 every 5 levels and doesn't scale very well. Now, that's 11th and 16th. Yeah. Tree of Duality. This is air and wood. Okay. A ephemeral tree bursts forth, floating on air in an unoccupied square of your choice within 60 feet. Blooming flowers and fungal growths shed pollen and spores with a swirling gust of air spreads in a 10-foot emanation around it. The tree lasts until the end of your next turn, and you can sustain it for up to 1 minute. Each living ally that's in the area or enters it regains 3d4 hit points and is then temporarily immune to gain hit points from Tree of Duality for 10 minutes. And hallucinogenic spores. Enemies in the area are dazzled. Any enemy that leaves the area remains dazzled until the start of its next turn. And every 2 levels, the healing increases by 1d4. This is fantastic healing. Oh my god. This isn't even freaking impulse. This isn't even overflow. You can keep doing this every round. And granted, it takes 3 actions, and you do have to sustain it. But you can do this every round because it isn't overflow. That is ridiculous. I mean, not as ridiculous as the Protector's Ray thing, but it is pretty, yeah. But too bad it's only a 10-foot emanation around the tree. That's the only problem. Yeah. Oh, is that it? Really? Okay. Well, what time is it? It's almost 3? Okay. Well, you know what? Do you guys want me to keep going, or do you think I should end it here? I mean, I could do elemental allies next. I feel like I should do the elementalist archetype in a video on its own. But yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna do the elemental allies, but then I'll end the stream. Yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna do. All right, so let's see. Let's look at the elemental Eidolon. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to read the flavor text, but okay. So it's I'm going to assume you guys know how Eidolons normally work. So if you choose the elemental Eidolon, you get the primal list. The elemental core, that should be interesting. Oh, that's going to be the plane they're from, more than likely. Branch, fist, spike, tendril, or wave. Okay, those are the attacks. Adaptable elemental, strength +1, dex +4, con +3, intelligence 0, wisdom +1, charisma 0, +1 AC with a 4 dex cap. And then the primordial one is the strength-based one. Okay. Nature and survival for skills. It has dark vision. And then it gets a language depending on what type of elemental it is. Speed 25 feet. Abilities: elemental core, elemental burst, and elemental maelstrom. Okay. Your elemental Eidolon is made up of an amalgam of elemental matter and mortal life force, which helps protect them from certain effects that are more harmful to mortals than elementals. They gain a +2 circumstance bonus to saving throws against poison and sleep effects, as well as effects causing the paralyzed condition. In addition, their elemental essence bleeds less easily than flesh. The DC of any flat check they make to remove persistent bleed damage is 10 or 5 after receiving particularly effective aid. Choose for your Eidolon to be air, earth, fire, metal, wood, or water elemental. Your Eidolon and their unarmed attacks gain the trait of the chosen element, and the Eidolon gains additional effects based on your choice. For air, your Eidolon is formed from elemental air and is light as a breeze. Your Eidolon can leap, high jump, and long jump twice as far and doesn't take fall damage. Okay. Earth, your Eidolon is formed from elemental earth and is incredibly hard to move by force. Eidolon gains a +2 circumstance bonus to their fortitude or reflex DCs against attempting to shove or trip them. This bonus also applies to saving throws against spells or effects that would attempt to knock them prone. In addition, if any effect would force them to move 10 feet or more, they're only moved half the distance. Okay. Fire. Your Eidolon is formed from elemental fire and burns with embers of flame. Your Eidolon gains resistance equal to half your level, minimum 1, to fire, and an equal amount of weakness to cold and water. Their unarmed attacks deal 1 additional fire damage. Okay, that's decent. Metal. Your Eidolon is formed from elemental metal and can adapt their metallic form to battle. One of your Eidolons starting on melee unarmed attacks gains the versatile bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing trait as your Eidolon learns how to shift the metal into various weapon-like forms. Water. Your Eidolon is formed from elemental water and swims with ease. Eidolon gains the amphibious trait, allowing them to breathe water and air and avoid the normal -2 penalty for making bludgeoning and slashing unarmed attacks strikes underwater. Your Eidolon's land speed is reduced to 15 feet, and they gain a swim speed of 25 feet. You can take the amphibious form feat to increase their land speed back to 25 feet, as described in the feats. Your Eidolon is formed from elemental wood, and its living wooden forms twist and regrow as you focus your elemental energies. You can choose to have your Eidolon gain the plant trait. Whenever you refocus, your Eidolon gains a number of hit points equal to double your level. I'm not a huge fan of Summoner, but I can tell you that all these do make the Eidolon a little better. Elemental bursts. This is once for 10 minutes. Your Eidolon rips off a chunk of elemental matter from their own form and hurls it into a group of foes. Your Eidolon loses a number of hit points equal to your level. All creatures in a 20-foot burst within 60 feet take 66 damage with a basic reflex save against your spell DC. Damage increases by 1d6 for each level you have beyond 7th. The damage type is either fire damage if your Eidolon is a fire elemental, or the same type of physical damage type as your element's Eidolon's primary unarmed attack if your Eidolon isn't a fire elemental. Elemental Burst gains the traits that your Eidolon's unarmed attacks gain from Elemental Core. And then we have Elemental Maelstrom. Your Eidolon temporarily shifts its form into a swirling vortex of elemental matter and rampages through their foes. The Eidolon strides. During this movement, they can attempt to strike each enemy that is within their reach. If an enemy comes within your Eidolon's reach more than once, your Eidolon makes only a single strike against a given enemy. These attacks all count towards your Eidolon's multiple attack penalty, but the penalty doesn't increase until after all the attacks. Your Eidolon has the appropriate speed. They can climb, fly, or swim instead of stride. This does make this is probably the best Eidolon that a summoner could ask for, at least so far. These do unfortunately only affect you and your Eidolon. Means they're still not great for teamwork, which is one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of Summoner. But anyway, let's move on to Elemental Companions. Okay. It looks like these are all uncommon. Okay, I'm not going to go over all these, but essentially they'll look like uncommon companions that require certain druid orders. Yeah. Okay. Like air requires the storm order, earth requires the stone order, fire probably requires the flame order. Yeah. Metal actually doesn't require anything. That's cool. Yeah, they don't have a, yeah. Water is wave order, and Leaf order for wood. Okay. And then we've got elemental familiars. Okay. All right. I think I'm going to end the stream there, guys. But if you guys enjoyed this stream, go ahead and leave a like on it. And yeah. Let me know what you guys want me to do for my next stream. I'm thinking about doing Baldur's Gate 3, but I'm not 100% sure I want to do that yet. Yeah. So, anyway, I will definitely be doing a stream on the 1st when the 2 new classes come out. I will definitely be doing a stream then. Cover those. But in the meantime, guys, remember, teamwork is vital.